This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Oh, hi there. Imagine spending hours, days, weeks, or even years tracking down an elusive piece of lost media, only for all things lost to put it in the F tier. 2023 has been a wild year for lost media. Important steps have been made in efforts to find lost media. We prevented Warner Brothers from creating more lost media, and some great discoveries were made. All of these finds are a triumph, worthy of celebration. But let's be honest, some are better than others. So I'm going to go through all major finds of the year and tier them out. I'm going to focus on things that have been completely found this year, but partial finds are still on the table if they're interesting. The media will be ranked on how highly sought after it was, how impactful the discovery has been, how unlikely the find was, and my own subjective opinion will play a part too. Please let me know if you want me to make a video about any of these amazing finds, and let me know if you disagree with my rankings in the comments. So let's start with Sesame Street gymnastics segments. On January 1st at exactly midnight, Lost Media guru Yoshi Killer 2S posted all 6 of the missing Sesame Street gymnastics segments. A Sesame Street find is always great, but 6 and throw in the timing to, quote, start the new year off with a bang, it's an A tier. Yuri the Spaceman was a 2002 Cartoon Network show about a spaceman stranded on the moon. The show is pretty mysterious, and that really hasn't changed since Floor-Licking Crud uploaded all the previously lost episodes. We've been looking for some of these episodes forever, but they're not in great condition, so I'm gonna give it a strong B. Turn On was a 1969 variety show infamous for being cancelled after a single episode. One station even announced its cancellation mid-episode. So finding these episodes is an insane discovery that might need its own video. I really thought these were gone for good. These are an S tier. So the Kanye pilot. Earlier this year I made a video about it. You can check it out if you want, but the pilot's honestly a B. It really just makes me miss the old Kanye. So in 1947, Miracle on 34th Street dropped, becoming a Christmas classic, and the story has been retold over and over since. But the very first retelling of the story was the 1959 TV adaptation called The Miracle on 34th Street. It was long thought lost, but someone came forward with a recording of it. I'm gonna give this one a C. It's a lesser version of a classic film, but it's still a pretty crazy discovery, being from the 50s. Sky GameStar was a European game service that made exclusive games for popular IPs, like Ed, Edd n Eddy, Shrek, and SpongeBob. It ran from 2001 to 2015, but when the service was discontinued, all the games went with it. But in a wild move, a developer on the games started working with fans to make them playable in browser. This is pretty much the best case scenario for lost media. All of these games could have easily been lost forever, and if it wasn't for one legendary developer coming through, we wouldn't have any of these nostalgic games. I have to give this one an A. This year, 3 previously unidentified songs were uncovered, and in just a couple weeks of each other. One of these songs being found would be an A, but combined, this is an S tier. And I'm gonna lump in the extended version of the SpongeBob song Humpback Hoppin' with all these ones too, because it's in kind of the same vein. The Landy NES is a really great piece of emulation history. It was one of the very first NES emulators. Dropping in 1996, it went on to popularize the .NES format and served as the foundation for the iNES emulator. This is an A fantastic little piece of early internet history. Next up is You Can't Do That on Television, a Canadian sketch comedy series running from 1979 to 1990. It became better known in the 80s when it began airing on Nickelodeon. Some of the cast includes Alanis Morissette and Big Bang Theory creator Bill Pratty before they were famous. The series was caught up in legal issues, preventing a home media or streaming release for many of the episodes. And it's believed that the masters for these episodes were thrown out, so for the missing episodes of this show, the only chance was that someone recorded them off TV. And this year, Grigio Guy found the final episode. Definitely an A tier. SpongeBob Shanghaied. I've covered this piece of lost media so many times on the channel, and I'm glad to say that it is officially completely found. For over 20 years, we've been searching for the unused endings if Patrick or Squidward won the vote. In January, we found Squidward's segment, and in November, Nautical Nonsense uploaded the Patrick segment that they got from an anonymous Discord user who has access to SpongeBob production tapes. This is an excellent A tier discovery. Hell Has Harbor Views is an elusive made-for-TV Australian movie from 2005. Every once in a while, a copy would be for sale on eBay, but no one who knew how rare one of these copies were ever bought it. Eventually, the Aussie archivist posted it to the Internet Archives. I think this is a D tier. It's pretty much just a rare TV series. So this one's a twofer, Bimbo in Accordion Joe and Ace of Spades. These are two Betty Boop shorts from the 30s, before she was officially called Betty Boop. They were never necessarily lost, being occasionally screened, and were well preserved from what I can tell, just not put online. And Ace of Spades is still not online. So when it comes to ranking, Bimbo in Accordion Joe has some racist cringe in it. And given that they're already preserved and Ace of Spades still isn't online, I'm gonna give this one a D. Cringe is usually an instant F, but because of the age of the media, it bumps it up to a D. In 2010, Channel 101 released My Footloose Remake, which was meant to make fun of the official Footloose remake. The movie was divided into 55 scenes, with each scene being made by different filmmakers, who were free to do whatever they wanted. The scenes were compiled together in a complete mess of a movie. It lived on Vimeo for a while, but was taken down, and wasn't found again until 2023, when Rob T. Firefly came forward with a copy. It's a B. So in 2023, both of the pilot episodes for Bluey were found. At first glance, I feel like this would be an A-tier discovery. The pilots weren't that old, so it's not as impressive as other discoveries. But people were hyped beyond belief over these pilots being found. Like, way more than I expected. And after checking out the show for myself, I can say I get it. It is really solid for a kid's show. So for me, the hype bumps it up to a light S tier. Oh man, SpongeBob behind closed doors. So it's surprisingly common that animators of popular TV shows will make X-rated versions of the characters as a joke. Just a way to blow off steam, like we've seen before in the Rugrats. Usually these drawings never see the light of day, and for good reason. But this year, somehow, a compilation of raunchy drawings by the animators of SpongeBob, made in the early 2000s, was posted online. I'm conflicted about this one, because the drawings are worse than I could have ever imagined. On one hand, it's unbelievable that this found its way to the public, a real A or even S tier discovery. But at the same time, just why? Why? Real F tier kind of childhood ruining degeneracy. So I'm just gonna give this one a C and try to move on with my life. Okay, this next one is just unfathomable to me. Nearly 80 years later, we have new footage of the World War II invasion of Normandy. The fact that someone carried a huge camera into a war zone, survived D-Day, made it back home safely, only for the film canister to slip through the cracks of history, is just insane. But then, against all odds, it wasn't destroyed, it wasn't deteriorated beyond repair, and in 2017, it was discovered at an estate sale, finally digitized in 2023. This is an S tier find and might be the discovery of the year if it wasn't for the initial find coming in 2017. But I still consider this an S tier discovery. Moving on to something a little more lighthearted. Slamfest 99. This is the live wrestling event to promote the original Super Smash Bros. It's one of the most highly sought after pieces of lost media around. And in 2023, we got 31 new photos. Absolute A-tier discovery. Moving on to the Scooby-Doo 70s educational strip. Basically, these are a series of slideshows that are manually operated with an audio cassette playing at the same time. They're meant to be educational, usually shown in schools. All the work in digitizing these have been done by one individual, Uncommon Femera on Reddit. It is so cool that someone has spent this much time and effort preserving these pieces of media, but the content's kind of annoying. Like, to tell the projectionist to move to the next slide, there's this really annoying beeping sound that just goes throughout the whole thing. So sorry, I feel bad for this, but it's a D tier. Silent Hill Exotica. This one is a mod taking sounds and character models from Silent Hill and putting them into GTA Vice City. The discovery was made by Reddit user Mystic Channel, who found that the mod was installed on an original Xbox that they had bought. Until this copy was unearthed, the mod was basically considered a myth. It's a pretty wild discovery. I'm gonna go with a B tier. This one's a bit heavy. It's another World War II discovery. In 1943, the Jewish people living in the Warsaw ghetto of German-occupied Poland revolted against the Nazis, despite knowing victory was impossible. From this event, the only known photos of the uprising were taken by the Germans and used as propaganda. But unbeknownst to historians, a Polish firefighter, who I respect too much to try to pronounce his name, photographed the uprising, and in 2023, his son discovered the photos and released them to the world. An indisputable S-tier discovery. McWorld was a McDonald's-themed MMO, basically a Club Penguin or Neopets with a fast food skin on it. That classic clubhouse format where you can make an avatar, play games, win prizes, all while getting that sweet, sweet brand recognition. I'm gonna give this one a C. It's more robust than I expected, but others have done it better. So 2023 really might be the year of the lost pilot episode. Seemingly out of nowhere, the YouTube channel Media Garage posted around 150 unaired TV pilots made between 2005 and 2017. This is an absurd number of pilot episodes. There is no way I can go through every single one, but most of them are pretty unremarkable. So I'm going to give this one an A tier, but you'll hear about more Media Garage discoveries a few times in this video. A private collector recently gave a presumed lost 1919 silent film, Sealed Hearts, to the De Montfort University's Cinema and Television History Institute. It's unbelievable that a movie this old can still be found 100 years later. And it really gives hope that other silent films might be out there too. This discovery would be an instant S tier, but only 4 of the 5 reels have been recovered, leaving this movie still partially lost. So I'll have to give it a high A tier that could turn to an S tier if the 5th reel is discovered. The Jenny Jones Show had an infamous 1995 episode where people would confess their same-sex crushes. In this episode, Scott Ameter expresses his crush on a male coworker, who they bring onto the show. This would eventually result in the coworker killing Scott. A really tragic case. But the episode was used in court proceedings, so we knew that it existed, even though it went unaired. And in 2023, it was made available on the court.tv website. My rating might be controversial, but I'm going to give it a B tier. It might be an A or even an S tier if you're a true crime enthusiast, but to me it's just kind of sad. So there's this semi-popular clip of Arnold Schwarzenegger talking about smoking cigars. It became kind of an internet mystery where this interview came from, but it would turn out that the clip is not from an interview exactly, but part of a larger documentary on cigars that's been around for years. The documentary is cringe, and it was never really lost. Arnold's contribution is really the only thing of note. It's an F tier. Space Monster Wong Ma-Gui is a South Korean monster movie from the 60s. It's a pretty blatant knockoff of Godzilla. Until 2023, we only had 15 seconds of this movie, but there were accounts of sporadic screenings in South Korea. And in 2023, someone would buy the international rights to the movie and release it for the world to see. I'll give this one a B tier. Pretty cool discovery. The Return of Jezebel James is a pretty infamous TV series made by the creators of Gilmore Girls. It aired in 2008, but was canceled after airing only 3 of its 7 episodes because of, quote, unacceptably low ratings. All of the episodes were briefly available on iTunes and Amazon, but because the show was so bad, so few people bought it that these episodes were still basically impossible to come by. Until Reddit user Cuddlebuns realized how rare these episodes were and posted all 7 episodes that they found sitting on an old hard drive. I'm gonna give this one a D tier. It's really a testament to how bad the show was that episodes were being sold online, but so few people bought them that we had to wait over a decade to preserve them. In 2011, a video game was in the works based on the horror franchise Child's Play, called Chucky Wanna Play. The series seems like an obvious candidate for a video game tie-in, but the studio behind it couldn't get the money together to finish the game or buy the license to the character. It was eventually found on an old Xbox 360 dev kit. I'm gonna give it a B. I think this game really had potential. So I've talked about Family Game Night before. It was a series running on the Hub network that made use of life-size versions of Hasbro board games. The journey to find all the episodes of this forgotten gem have been long and arduous, but the dedicated members of the search finally found the last episode this year. It's an A tier. This is what Lost Media is all about. I'm gonna have to give Fear Factor Spring Break a D tier. It's a Fear Factor episode with only gross out challenges. It's pretty short and it's really just uninteresting. So The Owl House, its 2017 test pilot. This one's a bit like Bluey. It's a pretty recent show, and its pilot episode being found was really hype. The Owl House is probably one of the better things to come out of Disney in recent years, but it's not quite on the same level as Bluey. I'm gonna give it an A. So when the film Evangelion 3.0 You Cannot Redo debuted in 2013 at the New York Comic Con, marketed as the updated 3.33 version, the English dub was notably bad, full of inaccuracies, and it was pretty hard to follow. After the premiere, the dub was completely redone with the same voice cast and an improved translation. With the movie released on home media in English, only this revised dub was present, and ever since, fans have been trying to track down the bad dub. Given its rarity, the case was only closed when Twitter user Pokemon Crystal Vivo came in possession of a screener DVD of the original dub, preserving it online. I'm gonna go with the D tier on this one. It really seems like something only Evangelion fans would really enjoy. The Johnny Bravo Dragon Ball episode. So GBVO, Your All Request Cartoon Show, was an early 2000s programming block hosted by Johnny Bravo, who would play requests from viewers. Some of the shorts featuring Johnny Bravo are still lost, but one of the most infamous episodes was recently found, the Dragon Ball Z episode, where a viewer requests the show to be played, and Johnny plays the episode at double speed while explaining the plot. It is just as bonkers as it sounds. A tier. Class of 96 was a short-lived TV series in 1993, described as 90210 in college, and it met a fate worse than death, being mid. It only got 17 episodes, minimal reruns, no home media or streaming release, just forgotten, living on in VHS recordings from the 90s. In February, Grigio Guy found 8 episodes, and in May, N. Smith 15 found the final 4. I would put this in C tier for being mid, but we all know the only thing worse than being mid is being cringe, so it's gonna have to go in the D tier. Monkiki's Castle is basically a prehistoric mobile game, released in 2002 for the Nokia 3410, known for being the first phone game to use 3D graphics. Because this was the stone age of mobile gaming, the game and all of its versions have been difficult to find, and even more difficult to emulate. And after years of various discoveries, we can officially say that all versions and all languages of Monkiki's Castle have been found. I gotta give this one a B tier for all the effort. Rock Odyssey is a 1987 animated music film by Hanna-Barbera, featuring covers of songs from the Beatles, Bob Dylan, the Stones, Queen, and more. It was known for being really bad. It was creepy and it never aired on TV in the US, only shown in Latin America with the narration dubbed over in Spanish. But in a surprise twist, someone came forward with the full movie in English that they'd recorded off the British TV channel Sky TV in the 90s, even though it was believed that it never aired in the country. This is an A tier, a twist discovery of a banned animated movie from the 80s. Love it. In the third episode of Pinky and the Brain, they featured a song called Brainstem. A month before the episode would officially air, a promotional version of the segment was shown on TV in Portland, Oregon, and was notably different from the official release. Since the episode aired in 1995, fans have been trying to track down this lost version, and fan Peter Paltridge, who swore up and down for years that there was a different version of this show, found a VHS tape of the lost song. This is a wholesome B-tier discovery. Lep's World Run was a mobile game for iOS released in 2014. The game was pulled from stores in 2015, likely because it was very similar to a game called Cookie Run, receiving backlash and possible legal action. It wasn't until May of this year that Lost Media Wiki user Blue Jay Dude Productions found the game still in their app store, and it was preserved. I think I'll go with a D tier on this one, since the game was essentially a reskin of Cookie Run. 4Cat was a musician active on Newgrounds from 2011 to 2017, and in 2016 he released the EP 4Cat and 7 Years Ago on Bandcamp, consisting of 6 tracks featuring other Newgrounds musicians. In 2019, 4Cat's entire online presence was deleted, leading to a lot of his music being lost, including the 4Cat and 7 Years Ago EP. In May, Lost Media Wiki user @RickMediaArchive posted the entire album after finding an archive of the EP from 2017 still on the Bandcamp servers. The music is not for me, but folks seem pretty hype about this find. Let's go with a C. Jammer Lammy was a spin-off of Parappa the Rapper. Both are excellent games way ahead of their time. The spin-off had an arcade port called Jammer Lammy Now, released in Japan, that improved and expanded on the original game. The port eventually disappeared from arcades and was considered lost. Eventually, British broadcaster and known weeb Jonathan Ross came forward with an arcade cabinet of the game in his private collection and provided it to be archived. The ROM is now available to play. This is an A tier. Until 2023, we had no reason to believe this game still existed. An incredible find. And in the process of preserving this game, on the game disc, we would find another piece of lost media, the lost videos from milkcan.com. This was a series of interviews given by the game's fictional band Milk Can, all the way back from 1999. I'm really tempted to combine these two entries and give it an S tier, but I think they both belong in that A row. Be Safe with the Tweenies was a series of safety shorts from the 2000s, based on the British children's series Seabees. Over the years, all of the shorts from the safety series have been found, with the exception of the banned episode Knives, about a kid that brings a real knife to a toy sword fight, and an adult has to set him straight. In early 2023, the YouTube channel Galaxy Vault 2 posted a song from the short, and in May, they were finally pressured into releasing the entire short. I'm gonna go with a B on this one. I don't know why, but this one really stuck out to me. Dream on the Run is a Canadian film from 1977 made by a mysterious man going by the name John Edwards, and many of his acquaintances don't think that's his real name. John based the movie on his experiences after serving time in prison for an unspecified crime. Over the course of 4 years, he made the film, supposedly funding it himself at over $100,000. The search for the movie began in 2022 when Reddit user Temporary Stope posted about the movie's soundtrack that they had found at a thrift store. After a whirlwind search, a copy was found at the Library and Archives of Canada. Lost Media Wiki user QuickFox2013 got permission from the film's rights holders to make a copy of the movie from the library, posting it online for all to see. This is such an underrated discovery, such a cool search stemming from a vinyl from an extremely obscure movie made by a mysterious director. I really want to give this one an S, but I know it's just a high A tier. Moving on, the next one is an absurd discovery, the Gluco Boy, essentially a glucose monitor for your Game Boy. It's one of the craziest things I've heard in a while. I get it, but it's a strange idea. I'm gonna have to go with an A just because of how weird this one is. Star vs. the Forces of Evil is an animated series that aired on Disney XD from 2015 to 2019. It instantly became one of the channel's most watched shows. The pilot episode was made available to the public in June, being anonymously posted on 4chan and spread around internet forums before gaining public attention. I really love the mystery of this one. I gotta go with an A tier. The Spider-Man Safety Series. I've talked about this one in the past. Before this year, we only had one episode, and we finally found another with 2 more to go. This episode was What to Do About Drugs. I'm gonna give it a B, but it's gonna move up to an A when we find the other 2 episodes. Super Y was a CGI animated kids show on PBS starting in 2007, but years prior, in 1999, the series was pitched to Nick Jr. as a stop-motion animated series. Nickelodeon would end up turning it down, but not before the pilot episode was made. This alternate stop-motion version of the show has been highly sought after for years, due to just how different it was from the final show. I don't know if I should give this an A or an S. I'm gonna go with an A, maybe the best A tier of the year. So there are so many lost commercials from the Philippines. This one is a PSA for some kind of workplace insurance that some businesses are required to have by law. I'm gonna give this one a C, just because it's relatively tame compared to other lost Filipino commercials. This year has been wild for weird peripherals. So, the game PGA Tour Golf 2 dropped in 1992 for the Sega Genesis, and in 1993, it released for the Heartbeat Catalyst. This was a strange exercise-based peripheral for the Sega Genesis. It involved hooking up sensors to monitor your heart rate, not going over or under, and somehow this would correlate with gameplay. It obviously did not sell well and became extremely rare. The only known copy of the Catalyst PGA Golf 2 belongs to YouTuber Video Game Experiment, and it was finally posted online in May 2023 by archive.org user Isaiah MV. Incredibly cool, rare discovery. This is an A tier. Bubble Guppies is a long-running Nickelodeon show that started in 2011 and is still going to this day. It's one of the many pilot episodes that just magically appeared after Nickelodeon suffered a data breach. Really crazy coincidence. I'm gonna give it a B. Oh man, this one's cringe. Detour is a pilot made by the creator of Psych. It's about the lead singer of Weezer, Rivers Cuomo. It's about that period of time after the release of Pinkerton that he took a break from the band and went to Harvard. The show was going to be based on his experiences, and it is pure, unadulterated cringe. I love Weezer, but this one's an F tier. It might need its own video. In the late 70s, Steely Dan recorded a track called Second Arrangement, and the story of this recording session has become legendary. The story goes that the band finally recorded a take that they liked, but the audio engineer accidentally erased 75% of the song before the band could listen to it. Since then, they have never been able to make a good enough recording, and scrapped the song altogether. For decades, it's believed that this song was permanently lost. But in 2020, the daughter of the late Roger Nicholas, one of the engineers on the song, found a tape containing this lost song. In 2023, it was made public. We may never know what really happened, but now we have the song and it is an S tier. We have an honest to God, 100% grade A lost media. No chance of being found, and yet here we are. Incredible. Limitless Paradise is a 1981 amateur anime made entirely by Hiroshi Harada. And if you're familiar with Harada's work, they are extremely graphic. He's probably best known for his film Midori, a movie that's been nicknamed the most banned anime in Japan, and it lives up to that name. Harada only screened Limitless Paradise a few times in the 80s, but became embarrassed by it, partially due to the deteriorating quality of the tape. In 2020, Harada voiced support of it being officially released. I'm gonna give it a B. The audio and visual quality are beyond bad. It has some of Harada's signature style in a very amateur sense, but there are some moments that are really well directed, and you can tell an insane amount of work went into this project. Man, Game of Death is one of my favorite discoveries of the year. This is an unfinished film directed by and starring the iconic Bruce Lee. He passed away while the movie was still in production, having filmed 100 minutes of footage. In the years since, only 30 minutes of the footage has been released to the public. It's long been believed that the remaining bits were just outtakes. But in 2023, Arrow Video released everything. 2 hours of footage from Bruce Lee's unfinished film, accompanied by a nearly 4-hour documentary about the movie. This is a legendary S tier. From a real high, we're gonna go to a real low. I think you'll be happy to know that the 2009 Russian adaptation of Full House was found. Why? Who would make this? F. Our next one is Cartoon Network NBA All-Star Slam. And I remember watching these as a kid, and they really stuck with me. It's a really cool find. I'm gonna give it an A. The George Lopez Dora the Explorer commercial. This one was a whirlwind. El Supersonic Q made a video about the lost commercial crossover between Dora and George Lopez. It was found soon after his video. I'm gonna give it a B. This has been a good year for Beatles lost media. The song Now and Then came from a John Lennon demo recorded at the piano in 1977, and in 95, the surviving band members tried to rework the song for the Beatles anthology project. They ended up having to scrap the song because of technical issues, but not before they recorded instrumentals for the song. The technical issues were finally solved using tech that was commissioned by Peter Jackson that were able to separate John Lennon's vocals from the piano part. And using a guitar part recorded by the late George Harrison in that 1995 session, the Beatles released their final song. This is a crazy thing to happen, but the fact that this is technically a new song compiled of older elements that weren't really lost, I'm gonna have to give this one an A. But like I said, 2023 was a big year for Beatles lost media. In 1963, the band played at the Stowe School in Buckinghamshire in front of mostly students. No recordings of this event have ever emerged, just a recording of a backstage conversation during the show. But out of nowhere, exactly 60 years after the performance, the BBC announced a recording had been found. The then 15-year-old John Bloomfield had placed a microphone at the front of the stage, capturing the concert on a reel-to-reel tape recorder. Unbelievable, unfathomable discovery. 100% S tier. Guardians of the Cosmos. YouTuber Ray Mona is at it again with another fantastic discovery. The American pilot for Saint Seiya, called Guardians of the Cosmos. A tier. Spartacus and the Sun Beneath the Sea was a French animated TV series from the mid-80s about a lost subterranean city. It was dubbed in English and aired on Nickelodeon. Episodes were released on DVD in their native French, but the English dub was not. And surprisingly, all the episodes were eventually found in English on the Australian channel SBS On Demand in HD. The episodes were ripped and archived. The show's pretty strange. I'm gonna give it a C tier. Hey man, I don't know how to rank this one. The Holy Bible for the Game Boy Advance. It's just the entire Bible for the Game Boy Advance. I think I'm gonna have to go with a C for Christ on this one. 680 Home Appliance is another creepy lost commercial from the Philippines. This one really isn't that bad. There were some weird choices in the music, but that's really the only thing off about it. I'm gonna give it a D tier. Hate Hurts You was an anti-hate PSA produced by the Jewish Chautauqua Society in 1974. The commercial was infamous for scaring kids, resulting in the commercial being pulled and shortened for re-airing. The full version that haunted so many children in the 70s wouldn't surface until nearly 50 years after its original airing, when Reddit user Delchi was finally able to track down a copy. B tier. Toonheads was a Cartoon Network anthology series, showcasing animations from major studios like Hanna-Barbera and Warner Bros. In 1996, they decided to showcase smaller animators with their special, A Night of Independent Animation. The search for the special began in 2019 when James Calico began posting about a cartoon from his childhood. Eventually, it was determined that it was likely one of the shorts from this Toonheads special. The short in question, The Wire, was eventually found, but all the shorts from the special were not accounted for until 2023. I think this is a B tier. If it wasn't for James Calico trying to find this old short, it's likely that these other gems would have gone unpreserved. Michael Jackson's Get Your Weight Off Me is probably one of his most wanted unreleased songs. I'll have to cover more of his unreleased music someday. This one is a strong A, maybe even an S, but I'm gonna go with an A for right now. This one is just insane. The 1990 TV show Grand was a satire of soap operas that aired for 2 seasons, but in a move that no soap opera has even come close to. The final episode of the series never aired. Episodes of the show were hard to come by in general, but they did exist online. And out of nowhere, with no explanation given, somehow this final unaired episode of Grand found its way online. I'm really tempted to give this an S just because of how unlikely a find like this is, but it really doesn't stand with the other S tier entries, so I'm going to have to go with an A. But speaking of S tiers, Blueprints is the pilot episode of Blue's Clues, another contender for Lost Media Discovery of the Year. This has been so highly sought after for decades, and it was so hype when this one was found. S tier. Cleopatra is a 1917 movie and is one of the most sought after silent films, thought to have been destroyed in a fire in the 30s. And since then, film archives have been scoured for this movie to no avail. And somehow, against all odds, 41 seconds of this movie was found, just this year. A strong contender for Lost Media Discovery of the Year. Pokemon the Movie 2000 Adventure is a really odd browser-based Pokemon game from 2000, meant to be a tie-in with the movie. The game used a pseudo 3D style, and to this day the game is pretty unique for the Pokemon series. The lore is that the game was meant to be simple, but the devs were absolute chads, and the game was just too good. Nintendo felt that a free 3D-esque browser-based movie tie-in game made their games like Pokemon Snap and Pokemon Stadium look bad, so they took it down. The game was only retrieved through a group effort between the developers, Did You Know Gaming, and technical experts like Rufus10 and Doom Tay, leading to the game being available on the internet. This is an easy A tier. So this one's a kind of weird one. I don't really know where to place it. Pickles was a game prototype developed by Santa Cruz sometime between 2005 and 2006 for the PC and GameCube. Basically, nothing was known about this game until the YouTube channel Cake bought a GameCube dev kit that came with this Pickles game. It's just a prototype, but it kind of looks like it has some potential. Maybe if they'd gotten the rights to use Nintendo characters, it might have been a hit. Currently, the game is really bare bones, and we only really have a level to play, so I'm going to go with a C tier. Escape from Team Fortress was a planned 2014 series about a group of friends trapped in the game Team Fortress 2. It was developed by Happy Guillotine Studios, with funding by Machinima. 8 episodes were planned and fully voiced, but after animating just 1 episode, they ran out of money. The series was cancelled, and the 1 episode was never released. But on September 12th, 2023, HLG Studios posted the finished episode to YouTube. They also said they have storyboards and the dialogue from the unfinished episodes, so hopefully they'll release those soon. B tier. Disney Game Downloads were a series of computer games available from 2005 to 2008. After the service shut down, the games were still playable but could no longer be bought. Over the years, all but one of the games have found their way online. This game was Disney Mini Golf. It was found in Spanish by Lost Media Wiki user Raymond, and in English by Lost Media Wiki Discord user March, rendering the search complete. C tier. For over 6 years, a Reddit user has been looking for an anti-smoking PSA they saw as a child, and thanks to the Lost Media Wiki, they finally found it. The PSA, "Smoking Stinks," and I totally get why this commercial would stick with a kid. It's pretty unhinged. I'm gonna go with B tier. In the 90s, Crash Bandicoot and Spyro were on top of the world, but into the 2000s they dropped off a bit. In their heyday, Crash had a few racing games, and there was even a crossover racing title in the works between the two, Crash and Spyro Racing. The game was cancelled sometime in 2002 to 2004, but was recently found on an Xbox dev kit and dumped online by Modern Vintage Gamer. I'm gonna give this one a C. The game is quite unfinished. The opening cinematic is cool, but the game itself is just very bare bones. Out of Jimmy's Head was a really strange 2007 live-action animation hybrid show on Cartoon Network that served as a continuation of the movie Reanimated, about a kid who gets a brain transplant from a famous animator and starts seeing cartoons everywhere. People absolutely hated this show, partially because of its use of live action on Cartoon Network, and partially just because it kind of sucked. Cartoon Network has tried to bury the show, only releasing the first 3 episodes on DVD in Europe. The first 10 episodes eventually found their way online, and the remaining episodes were only found in foreign language dubs. But in October, Lost Media Wiki user CRB came forward with the last 10 episodes in English. I'm gonna give this one a B. It's always crazy when a show this recent goes missing and can't be recovered for over a decade and a half. Really great find. The pilot for the mysterious unmade spin-off from iCarly, Gibby, was found. I'm gonna give this one a B. The pilot really just doesn't work, but it's another great find from Media Garage. Me and My Shadow is a cancelled DreamWorks movie. There were attempts to make it in 2010 and again in 2015, but this time with Edgar Wright as director. Both times it was cancelled due to corporate restructuring. We've been drip-fed bits and pieces for years, and recently we found 2 pieces of the movie. I'm pretty conflicted about this one. One of the clips is just character models, and the other is a 6-second clip of the movie during early development that ends with this explosion that seems like a meme or something. I love it.
Oh my word.
Listening to my head, it's a D, but my heart says it's a B, so I'm just gonna call it a C. After 16 years, both pilots of the Nick Jr. classic Yo Gabba Gabba have been found. In 2020, the first pilot was found on a promotional DVD, and in 2021, the second pilot was found, but then the video got taken down and it was lost again. But in 2023, Yo Gabba Guru found an employee of the show with a copy, making both of the show's pilots officially found. I'm gonna give this one a B. I feel like people who grew up with the show might give it an A, but for me it's a B. This one is crazy. Amazonas is a 1918 documentary about the Peruvian and Brazilian Amazon. The footage was stolen from the director by an associate of his, who sold the film in England, where it was shown in theaters. The film was a hit, but vanished by the 1930s, and the director would die, never getting to see his film in theaters. Against all odds, it was discovered in an archive in Prague, mislabeled, and has since been screened. This is an S tier, no question. What a crazy story. In the year 2000, a DVD player / game console hybrid was released, called Nuon. It was a flop, competing with the likes of the PS2, and only 8 games were ever made for the system. 7 of the games have been archived, but the South Korean exclusive, Crayon Shin-Chan 3, proved much more difficult to find. We knew private collectors had the game, but it wasn't until October 2023 when it was uploaded to the Internet Archive. I'm gonna give this one a D. The game was hoarded by a collector, and even though the game is now preserved, you still can't play it because there's no emulator for the Nuon. Who Wants to Marry a Multimillionaire was a television special in 2000. It was basically a beauty pageant where the winner gets to marry a multimillionaire. The show was controversial, mainly because the multimillionaire wasn't really that wealthy, and he had a restraining order against him for domestic violence. Fox never aired the special again, but the YouTube channel, River Cuomo's Funko Pop, after 23 years, would come forward with a personal recording they made when the show aired. I have to give this one an F. The show is heinous, pure cringe, and it's really given some dystopian vibes. But the YouTube channel's name, that's an S. In February 1970, the Tokyo police aired a Most Wanted commercial, asking if viewers had seen a criminal who was on the run. This commercial will go on to take on a bit of a mythical status, because it was so odd. No one could prove that this really existed, and it kind of sounded like a creepypasta, especially because those who remembered seeing it would say it would pop up on any channel at any time, even during kids shows, giving them a little jump scare. Commercials are infamously difficult to find. You have to hope someone recorded a show show off TV, then hope that they post the recording online without removing the commercials, and even then, someone has to watch the commercials, identify them as lost, and let the community know. I'm giving this one an S tier. An over 50-year-old creepy Japanese commercial that someone just happened to record and unknowingly post to YouTube as part of a larger video. This is a real needle in a haystack kind of find. There's been a couple of great wrestling lost media discoveries this year, but I'm just going to cover one. Bradshaw versus Christian. This is a pretty strange case. It was a 2001 WWF match that resulted in Bradshaw losing his European Championship title to Christian. Even though the match resulted in a title change, they didn't air it because of time constraints. I guess they were just feeling generous and in August dropped the entire match on Facebook. I'm going to give this one a C. Fans were really excited to see it, but the bout is only 2 minutes long and fairly by the numbers. It's pretty strange we haven't gotten more Daredevil video games. And in 2003, to coincide with the Daredevil movie, there was a game for the PS2 in the works, but the studio behind it kept missing deadlines, and in the end, Marvel did not approve of the game to be released. In 2020, we had evidence that a copy existed, and in July 2023, an anonymous developer worked with preservationists to make a build of the game public. I'm gonna give this one a B. The game's pretty messy, but it's a remarkable find. Little Shop was an animated French-American adaptation of Little House of Horrors. It only aired for one season in the early 90s, and reruns aired occasionally into 1997. The show really wasn't much of a hit and kind of just disappeared, but it did make an impact on a small number of kids at the time, who would go on to lead a well-coordinated search effort. By 2017, all episodes were found with the exception of What a Wonderful Leaf, that they could only find the German language dub of. But on November 2nd, 2023, exactly 32 years after the episode first aired, the Little Shop Archive released It's a Wonderful Leaf in English, making the Little Shop series completely found. I gotta give this one a B just for the dedication of the community. LJN Video Art was a games console released in the late 80s that didn't do too well. Like most everything made by LJN, it sucked. And it's mostly known today because the angry video game nerd did a rant about it. 9 games were made for the system, each basically amounting to a coloring book where you color with a barely functional joystick. And in late 2023, all the games were officially found. Given how infamously bad the console is, I think only an F tier is fitting. The Thick of It was a BBC satire of the British government. The show was a massive success, and in 2007, ABC attempted to make an American adaptation. A pilot was filmed but never picked up and never released. It was one of the lost pilots released by Media Garage, and I actually think it's pretty good. The cast is stacked. It has Kim Wexler and Chuck McGill from Better Call Saul, Henry Winkler, Oliver Platt, Michael Keane, the woman who voices Lois Griffin, and Wayne Wilderson. It was executive produced by the creator of Arrested Development and had the same general feel of the show. I'm gonna give this one an A. Excellent pilot with a lot of potential. In 2009, there was a really strange SpongeBob promotional event that aired on Comedy Central in Germany about the craziest SpongeBob rumors. And it has this insane banner that shows Patrick and SpongeBob kissing. It's wild that something like this would air with Nickelodeon's approval. But in a YouTube upload archiving this wackiness, at the very end of the video, just for a single second, you can see SpongeBob holding a PSP playing Little Big Planet. This was really strange, and no one could seem to find the full video of what appeared to be a commercial, but then it was found a week after a Lost Media wiki page was made about it. And the commercial itself is basically nothing. It's just 8 seconds, only showing SpongeBob's hands for like 2 of them, and the rest is just footage of Little Big Planet. I'm gonna give the commercial a D. The best thing we got out of it is this crazy SpongeBob banner. The Shrek test. Man, after a long journey search, the Shrek test has been found. I just made a video about it, go check it out. It's an S tier. Glago's Guest is a Disney short about a lonely Russian soldier stationed alone in the middle of nowhere who encounters aliens. It's thought that this short was meant to be shown before the movie Bolt, but it didn't work well with test audiences, and it was never given a larger release, never even making its way to Disney+. But in 2023, the short popped up on the Internet Archive, taken from a For Your Consideration screener disc. The short is expertly animated, well directed, but it is just not good. I totally get why Disney did not release it. Let's give it a C, just because it's a cool find. And last, but certainly not least, Windows XP, the musical. In 2001, to celebrate the launch of Windows XP, Microsoft Israel blessed us with something so magical, so cursed, so 2000s that we just weren't ready for it. No, we would have to wait 22 years for this to bless our screens. Windows XP the musical. This was a full hour-and-a-half long musical, interspersed with what appears to be improvised demonstrations of Windows XP. In the past, Microsoft Israel has denied that this ever happened, but it turns out that the full performance had been sitting online since 2017 under an unassuming name. Dancing NG on Twitter broke the story. This is an A tier. And that is it. The 2023 Found Lost Media tier list. I couldn't cover everything, so let me know what I missed, and let me know if you want a full video out of any of these discoveries. Big shout out to this video's sponsor, Squarespace, the go-to place to build your own custom website. With Squarespace, making a professional looking website could not be easier. They offer an array of beautiful, professional website templates, and with their fluid engine utilizing drag and drop technology, these templates become infinitely customizable and fun to use, providing a solid foundation that never limits you creatively. This could really be said about everything Squarespace has to offer. Storage is made simple with their asset library, setting up an online store is simple, and they'll take care of the production, inventory, and shipping for you. I could go on, but you need to check it out for yourself. Head over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch your dream website or domain, go to squarespace.com/allthingslost to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Again, that's squarespace.com/allthingslost. Thank you so much for watching, and thanks to all my Patreon supporters, especially Miss Dana, can you say Rogue Goat Mafleur, Odesta Honeycrisp, and Vinny Cataldo. This is Mike with All Things Lost. See you soon.